See if it starts. Okie dokie. Well, we are recording now. So thanks everybody for coming today. We only have one more PD after today, so we'll do one next Wednesday. And it's going to be more like kind of a cleanup, end of the year cleanup, digital cleanup, which is not always easy. So we're excited today to have Barry Stone. He is a teacher at Vincent's Lincoln High School down in Vincent's, Indiana. He is actually a former Oracle. So Barry was principal at the high school. Oh gosh, how many years ago was that, Barry?
It was a long time ago.
that was almost before
2000. It had been 2006 through 2011.
Okay, Barry was very instrumental in getting Delphi going Google and going one-to-one. And probably without Barry there, it's hard telling where we'd be at. We might be in the same boat as some of the other schools around the area that have not been one-to-one as long as what we have. So definitely have him to thank for that. I've actually known Barry since my junior year of high school, which was a long time ago. So he was my JV golf coach. He was our basketball coach of the school too. So he was very instrumental in getting me hired at Twin Lakes. And then he and I have done quite a few activities, professional activities throughout the years, especially the last 5-6 years as well. So he's just a wealth of knowledge, great person to have with us today. And he's going to go over how to make your own 360 virtual tours. And it's great because we're going to be able to add this for all the different levels as well. So that, Barry, it is all yours.
Well, welcome everybody. I think we need to start out today with a Kyle story. What do you think, Brian? You good with that? Amy? I think you guys have probably heard it, but since Kyle brought up his golfing days, if none of you have ever been golfing with him, back when he was a youth, he kind of had an attitude, and he got mad very, very easily. So we were practicing for the conference over at Honeywell, and he'll probably correct me on what hole it is because I don't remember that. He is a little younger, but we finished the front, and Kyle's the best at missing 4-foot birdie putts. I mean, the best. So as we're playing the round, one of our freshman golfers has proceeded to hit like 6 or 7 35-foot putts while Kyle misses all these 4-foot ones, and he's getting mad. So as we make the turn, Kyle sticks one on, I think it was a par 3, sticks it within 4 feet, easy birdie putt.
Was it easy?
Well, it should have been easy. Sinclair hits one and just barely gets it onto the green. It's kind of like right on the fringe, and he walks up and he putts it with just casually, doesn't even look at it, just walks up, putts it. It travels 40 feet up and down and around all over the place, and chunk, birdie. Kyle walks up with his 4-foot putt and misses it by 3 feet. And he proceeds to carefully walk over towards the lake and throw his putter in the bottom of the lake. And, we have conference the next day, and his putter is in the bottom of the lake. Now, he had to play the rest of the round using his pitching wedge as his putter. And I will say that he sunk 3 birdie putts after that. So he really didn't need it anyway. So if you've never been golfing with Kyle, it's a treat. But he was, he had more of an attitude back in the day, and he would throw his clubs and break them. And, it was quite entertaining days back then.
Yeah, I'm glad we're recording this so I can edit it out later.
No editing allowed. All right, so I'll take over the screen here. If you have any questions at any time, please interject. I'm not an expert by any means, but this is stuff that I try to do every year. I kind of modify it and do something different. But this is one of the lessons that I do in my class every year that the kids are always excited about because it's something new that they don't normally get to see. So we'll start out. Oops. It'd help if I actually present it here. This is what we're going to go over today. I've already done my opening remarks, but the first thing we're going to talk about are 360 pictures and photospheres. So how many of you actually have a 360 camera like this one? 1. Okay. So they're not necessarily a common thing to have. In fact, the kids talk about them and they're excited to have one if they have it, but it's really a novelty thing. It's not something that you want for everyday use. If you take it with you somewhere, it's specifically to put a picture up to make everybody jealous on Facebook or Instagram, Snapchat, whatever you want to put it on. But the problem is that you can't really do a whole lot with those pictures. Now, I've lost my power, so let me make sure that gets plugged back in. So the thing about those is that you actually have a camera, 360 camera, on your phones. So hopefully we get hooked up here. A program called Google Street View looks very similar to Google Maps, except it's more of a portal for people to post their 360 images. So when you're looking at this, you can see that there's pictures that have people's names on them. That's because they've taken that picture with a 360 camera. If it has the Google image, then it's obviously a picture posted by Google. But you can go anywhere in the world and you can look at different places and pictures that people have taken. So one of them I always like to go to is the George Rogers Clark Memorial here in Vincennes, because one year we were hosting one of the conferences for the state, and the first picture that comes up is one that I had taken, and we used the photosphere with it. Now you can see that it's not a great picture as far as the quality of it, but what we were doing is this was a clue as part of the breakout games, and you can see that it was a directional lock. You can see the picture's not great, but you get an idea that you can actually create a 360 image, and you can do that with your phone. In this program, down in the bottom right-hand corner, there's a little button, and then it shows take this photosphere. So when you use that, now it gives you a camera. So I'll stand up and take some pictures here. So if you stand in one location and you just follow the yellow dots, you can see that you can start creating a 360 image. Now, with each one of these, there's a lot of dots, and it would take a while to get them all, okay? But we'll just get a few of them, and you can go up and down everywhere there's a dot. And if you notice down on the bottom of the camera of the screen that there's a check mark, and when you use that check mark, it tells you how much you have left of pictures to take. But you don't have to take the whole thing to use it. And that's usually what I do, is I typically slow it down and just do some pictures that get most of the stuff in it. Now I finish it out. Once you have that, you can see the little guy, he's right here, he's putting it together for it. He's stitching it together. And so when he's finished, then we'll be able to use that picture. So it'll take a second here or so. Hopefully I got a good enough signal that it's going good. There we go. Perfect timing for my other coaches to jump on and text me out the whole time. So when we pick this picture, now you can see that just from this, I was able to create a 360 image. You swipe all the way around, you can see everything that's in the room, etc. Now, one of the things it does is it has where you can post it, and if you post it, then those things are going to be published to Google Maps. But you can actually just share it privately, and when you share it privately, you just go to your drive and you save it in your drive. And you upload it. So I'll remember that one's file_001, and get out of that. Yeah, anybody have any questions on that?
Hang on, we got. Oh, no, not a question. Just Bill noticing that you have Pinterest.
Thanks, Bill. I was glad to see you joined us, Bill. Red men back together again. Okay.
I will say that I will say that I'm going to be adding some links in the chat. I forgot to mention this at the beginning. The top one is actually going to have links to everything Barry's showing today. So it's like one link for all the stuff. So if you open that up in another tab, you'll here in a moment, you'll be able to follow along.
Okay, so if we go back now, the next thing we're going to talk about is that we're going to actually create a tour. So we're going to skip ahead and we're going to go into Tour Creator. And in Tour Creator, you can Google it, or it's arvr.google.com/tour creator. When you start your tour, this is all free. Now, I'm hoping that Kyle has this open in the district, but if it's not, he needs to open it. So when you do a new tour, you need to put in a cover photo and title it, etc. This is so later on when people want to search it, they can. Now, at this point, you can actually go, but you won't be able to publish it until you actually select an image. So most likely an inappropriate image will show up of, Kyle or something. So hopefully I stay away from that. We'll just put this one on there. Okay, so we create it. Now, as I said earlier,
we're used to weird things in professional development from Kyle. It's an every Wednesday thing.
Yeah, I figured as much. So I thought I'd be safe. When you're in this, you have two choices to how you want to add your scene. That's what they call it. The scene is the actual picture. If you use upload, then you can use the picture that we talked about. I go to select 360, go into my drive. Hopefully find the one I was looking for here. Notice I've done a few of them. There we go. And then it's going to open that 360 image into yours as a scene. If you click add scene, now we have it. Okay, so from this point, we can title it, where the location is, and then we can give a description. And this is part of the writing pieces that I have the students do to write different things out more than just say my basement. I want them to write something about it, talk about their man cave, what do they have in there? So they would do some writing pieces in here. In each one of the pictures, you can add a ambient sound. So it has to be an MP3. When I was using this, one of the things you've got to watch for, and especially on the Chromebooks, it may ask for you to change to all files instead of custom files. Now, let's see if I have that up here or not. Now it's not coming up. There it is. There's the MP3. This is a basketball game sound. We can add the sound to it. But you can also do narrations, and I'll show you that here in a little bit as well. With each one of these, you would add points of interest, etc. So when I start these, the first thing I do is I just have the kids pick pictures. So I'm going to add another scene. So in the street view, this time I'm going to use some different addresses. So let's say I want to do a Main Street Disney. Okay, when you pull that up, you have the little Pegman just like you would in Google Maps. And so if you grab the Pegman, you can see that blue lines and circles show up. Okay, I'll zoom in on that so it's easier to see. The blue lines are ones that Google has done with their Google car or somebody carrying it. The dots are pictures that someone else has taken. So you can go through and you can find a picture that you want to exactly represent what you're wanting. And you can see that there are different types of times of year. We saw one with a Christmas tree here. So if I pick that one, I can add that as my scene. And you can see that we have another picture that we can use that someone else, and it looks like they've used a photosphere. So you can see the legs cut out, but you can use this picture. And so when I have students picking out the different scenes, I typically ask them to choose locations that they either have been, want to be, or telling a story that they want. Add another scene. We can see we're at Delphi, and you can see that location-wise, the only pictures that have been taken 360s there are actually on the street view. And with the arrows, you can move down the street and get a better picture of where your location of what you want. So if I want it right at the corner, can add that as a scene. So a lot of times the kids like to go around and look for different locations and use stuff. Sometimes they like to try to get in the building. Try Universal Studios in Florida. Let's see if we can find something similar. Let's see if we can get inside of a building here. Nope. There we go. So this one's actually inside while they're walking, doing their tour. Okay, Race Through New York, starring Jimmy Fallon. Okay, and so if they've published those, then they're going to post up here on Street View in this location. Okay, so that's kind of just an introduction to the tour story. Okay, Kyle, you got a question or comment?
I was going to say the White House and some historical buildings have some really cool indoor images that you can get into. So like you can actually tour the White House by dragging that Pegman over onto the White House.
And you'd be surprised, even like I'll pull one up here that I use later on, but Lucas Oil Stadium. Depending on how much access they gave to Google, Lucas Oil Stadium, you can actually see that the lines run crisscross in the actual, on the playing surface. So you can actually move up and down the playing surface using these arrows because they actually went straight up and down the field with that. So it depends on the access that Google was given to how good. So if they were given good access to a historical building, you may have something to this effect where they went straight up and down and just kept turning around and coming back, going forward and backwards. And it's possible in Lucas Oil they did it with a car instead of just a person. So that's just the introduction to Google Tour Story, or to a Google Tour Creator. Now I'll show you kind of how I present it to the students and what I have them do each time, because you'll be surprised when you're going through your activities, if you don't have something to kind of outline it for them, they won't follow through with it. So the first thing I start with is I have just a really simple outline. After they've started doing theirs, I use this in just Google Drawings, and I make a copy for all the kids and when I create the assignment. And all they have to do is pick 4 locations and then tell the title of their story. So I also give them example. So especially now that we're not in school, I can be more specific, give them an example of this is my favorite sports venues. And so I picked out the 4 arenas that are my favorite. Mackey Arena, that one's just for you, Tonsoni. Great American Ballpark, that's another one that Tonsoni and I had a great time at. In fact, if you remember the bridge, do you remember that, Brian? So we have.
Yes, I do.
But you were a champion to be able to go across that bridge.
Scared of heights and had to walk over the Ohio River on this bridge with holes underneath it.
He did a great job. It was a lot of fun. The other 2, Lucas Oil and Bankers Life Fieldhouse. And so this is where I just begin. Just have them start out with getting the pictures that they want. What are their locations? How are they going to put it? Come up with some kind of idea of how they're going to tell their story or what they're going to do with it. Then I move into the next step. And inside this step are the points of interest. So we go back to our test, and each one of these in those locations, we can actually add points of interest. And those points of interest can be moved around and pointed at a specific spot. Okay, so that obviously they're points of interest. You can also set the starting view of where you want your picture to start. So you rotate around. If this is where you want to start, you can start it there. But your points of interest will remain where you place them to begin with. So at this point, I'm going to go through and have them look at their picture and pick their points of interest. So I want them to do a minimum of 3 points of interest, and I want them to add pictures to represent that image. So again, I create an example, and in these pictures, they're my personal pictures, but I've told the kids, if this is a place they want to visit, then they can go in and they can pull pictures from the internet and just show those locations to represent what they want to do or where they're at. Okay, so from here, one of the things that the students are learning as far as inside of Google Drawings is how to insert pictures. So I have them insert their pictures and just place them so that we have another part of the outline completed. I'm going to go back into mine now and start showing you the first part and how I created it. That here's Mackey Arena. And first point of interest is the scoreboard. And when you place a picture, it actually allows you to change the size of it. Put it where you want to. Okay, so since this is about the scoreboard and has some relevance, that's why I wanted to put it there. Next pictures, team bench, and then where the student section's at. Okay, now inside of these, when I have the kids put the picture in, I want them to come up with a description that tells their story. This is the part where you're going to have more of the story piece at it. So in the scoreboard, this is a picture of Jackson and I at our last game. We tried to post that to Twitter so that we can get up on the Jumbotron. Okay, and so each one of those comes their story. So I go back to this example. You can see we have the little pieces. Now within each one of those stories, you can actually have voice narrations and ambient sounds. So the sound earlier that I put, the basketball, okay, I was able to place that one here. And I also created a narration, and I'll get you the site here in a minute for that.
I added that link over in the chat.
Okay, the online that I use is the online voice recorder. So you go to online voice recorder, it makes it into an MP3, and that's again why it's important. Is there's probably other ones that are better, but this one gives you MP3s, which are the exact ones that you need to be able to put them in the tour creator. So when you click on it, you start talking. You can add different voiceovers, whatever you want to have. let's say you pause, you want to start over, and now I begin my talking again. Then when I'm finished, now I can actually go in and edit it out. So if I wanted to move back to the part where I started the second time, so then I save it, and when I save it, it saves it as an MP3, and that's important. So all the video clips need to be MP3s, and that's a very easy one to do. That does work on the Chromebooks, and so those are one. That's why we've chosen that one. So as part of the layout, again, I've gone through, and this is the next part that I asked them to do, is that if they've told their story and they've typed out, it's kind of their script. So now I've got another form that I want them to fill out. And so they're going to type in their location, pick their ambient sound, and then I want them to link that audio file to the icons so that I have all of those and they'll turn them in together. Okay, that's just a little extra busy work that I like to do, but it gets them organized and shows what they can do. So in my example, again, here's Mackie Arena. I click on the sound, it's going to go to another site, and it's going to actually pull up and let you play it. So in order to add those, whatever icon that you use, what you're going to do is you go into Drive and where you've stored these. And so the one that I'm looking at right now, the example is point of interest number 1, which was the scoreboard. So I'm going to type that in there. So my point of interest that I did my narration before, and it's here. So I'm going to right click on it and get the shareable link. When I turn on the link and go to the share settings, I can copy the link. Then inside of the Google Tour Creator, if I right click, actually I just click on it, go up to link, paste it. Now I have the narration set up that I have it organized here. And again, this was recorded on the online recorder. So inside of my favorites, when you click on those, down at the bottom, you have the choice of the pictures and the narration. The slashes through them mean they're already there, okay? But what you're gonna find is when you wanna add, I'm gonna go to Lucas Oil and we'll just add one of the other ones. When you wanna add a narration, one of the problems that we had with it is, again, when you select the audio file, you may have to change options so that they're all files. And on the Chromebook, that's down in the bottom left. And so I'm going to go just pick out one of the narrations. That I recorded. And then it's going to put the strike through. And obviously this one's not Lucas Oil Stadium, but it does have the narration, gives you the example. So for each one of these, I'm going through and I want those points of interest to be put on there. So the team bench, again, go into Drive, right click, get the shareable link, turn it on. Now, the nice thing is from school-wise, the shareable link, when I turn it on, I don't have to go into the share settings and change anything. It's going to be anybody at VCSC. I copy that and I put it into place. Okay, so this is the assignment the students will turn in before they actually move to the last part and they create it. So once they're to the point where they've actually added all the pieces, the parts for all 4 pictures, this is what the expectation would be. They have the sound, the narration, they have all of their descriptions typed in, their team bench, there's the student section. So each one of those are completed. And if it was done for all 4, then we would have them turn it in. To turn it in, go up to publish. And when we hit publish, you have 2 choices. It'll usually come up public, but we want unlisted. When you click publish for unlisted, it's going to give you a link. And then we can copy that link. And then when they go to Google Classroom and they're ready to submit their assignment, then they can turn it in that way. So that's kind of the steps that I use to go through Google Tour Creator and set up a story. I know that that's probably kind of generic in the sense that it's just a story about the kid's life. There's not a lot of academic piece to it. But as a tech teacher, I'm teaching them how to use the tools more than I am the content. But if you're a social studies teacher, this would be a great way that you could pick. Let's say that you're going through and you're talking about Abe Lincoln. And so you wanted the kids to go through and tell a story about Abe Lincoln using Google Tour Creator. So they could go through and pick out the locations of where his birth were, where he's lived, where he went, all the things that he did that are great at those locations, and they could add all those pieces together, and then you can create your own outlines for them to do it. I know there are tons of other ways, and I know Kyle and I have talked to him, so he's got some good ideas with that as well.
Barry,
Yes.
Like my initial thought is to take make this like a virtual tour of the entire year or semester. When you publish it once, can you go back and add to that, or is that just finalized and then you'd have to start over? For example, if I wanted people to add stuff to it as we went through the different topics and still turn that in, can you turn in the final thing, or is that just going to have to be that document that you created?
No, you can turn in the final thing. Yeah, the link actually stays active. Yes.
Okay, you can go back and add to it
yes.
after you've published it without people seeing it. Okay.
Yep. And so you can go through and you can have them turn it into you at various stages, and the link stays active. And actually, you don't even have to have them turn it in. You can say, hey, tomorrow I'm going to pull up your links and I'm going to see how far you are. I expect you to have 5 pictures finished, or etc. Then at the end of the year, you could actually publish it live, and then you could see it where it's out there where everybody can see it.
So your purpose of the other sheet was to teach planning and organization with the
Correct.
icons to turn that in as well as the finished product.
Correct. And especially now, I mean, we all know that everything's different. But in my class, I actually have 2 classes every day. And so I have 2 classes going at the same time always, because I have a business in my class. And so a lot of the activities that we do, the kids are supposed to be doing them on their own with my help. And so I give them activities like this and say, okay, here's what you need to work on. We go through it. And then they have step by step that they have to turn in kind of as checkpoints to make sure they're doing it. And then anytime they have questions, they can ask me. Right now it's a little harder. And so you got to be more succinct with the information I'm giving them so that they are able to outline it the way that I want them to and get finished with the project.
I agree, Brian. All right. Hey, Barry, can you stop presenting your screen at the moment?
I can.
All right. So a couple of different ways I see this being used. My 7th grade daughter they had to do in her social studies class, they had to do a choose a country, and they had to talk about the different pieces on it. So what she's able to do, I said, hey, let's make this a little more engaging. Let's do like a 360 instead of just doing like a Google Slides. And so we went through Tour Creator and we're able to pull that Pegman over onto different places in order to see like a 360 view of that area. And then she was able to add in, she could have done the narration. We didn't do the narration at this point, but she added in different important parts about what people were seeing in those images. She was able to add some of her some of the important pieces. My first grade daughter had to do a customs and traditions project where she was going to do like a Google Slides also, but what we did was we used Tour Creator, and she was able to talk about the different places we go for Christmas because she just absolutely loves Christmas. So we were able to go to different street views of all the grandparents' houses and then put those into like the presentation. So that way, strangers can find out where my in-laws live.
And I can tell you one thing I like about this is that when I do this, I get to know the kids a lot better just because of the activity I'm doing. They'll tell stories on here that you'd be surprised about. Now, I always tell them that they do not have to publish it out on the web, so they feel a little bit more comfort that they're not necessarily putting all their information out there. But I do enjoy reading their descriptions and things that they do because it gives me an insight to them that makes it a little easier throughout the class year to understand them.
Yeah, I agree. I think there's and you can use this in a bunch of different classes, not just social studies too. Because I mean, if you want to talk about scenes from a book that you're reading in your classes, I know grade 11 was doing something on their book was based over in Vietnam. For our kids to understand what Vietnam looks like just by 2D photos versus going on like a little tour, that's totally different. Our ninth graders were doing a book on it was Night by Elie Wiesel, and it was talking about the concentration camps. And so we actually found a tour that was previously created on it's just like this is kind of a great website that if you don't want to make your own, you can also search for a bunch of them. But we just went to poly.google.com and we found a couple different tours that actually had photos from the concentration camp where it showed like the people were laying 6 to a bunk. And it was just like, the teacher said that it was the quietest her class has been all year because they just couldn't believe the images that they saw. I know in the middle school, we've also done a bunch of 360 stuff there. Mr. Hoover actually created his own tour. Mr. Hoover, if you want to talk a little bit about what you've done and the one roadblock you've kind of run into. See if he'll unmute himself here.
Yeah. There you go. Yeah, I went down to Indianapolis a couple of years ago, and for Benjamin Harrison, I did his home. I got permission from the curator of that museum to do the whole entire house. The only part that was not empty was the gift shop, but everything else was sanitary. Nobody was in any of the shots. The only thing I had to do with them is go back to the curator and ask them what points of interest they want on each room. But I had to sign a contract, and the contract stated that this will not be published, and if it is, I'm going to get fined a lot of money. So I have to keep it in the classroom only. Is the limitations that they put on me. So I had to go through because they were pretty protective about that. And I even tried to reach out to his grandfather, William Henry Harrison's house, and they just straight flat down told me no. The houses that these presidents lived in are pretty protective of who they want, because that's their revenue. So I'm like, okay, well, I gotta have my students go somewhere and do something, and they're not leaving Delphi a lot, so I need to bring it to them. So at least I had one place that was pretty understanding about that. That's the only roadblock I actually ran into is I have to keep it in the classroom. I can't leave it.
See, and that's a little different from the conversations I've had, because I just put a link in the chat, but it was a virtual tour that a couple of my friends and I did. One's at Wayne Township schools and the other one's at Zionsville. And we went to the Indianapolis Zoo. And so we actually talked to them ahead of time and they let us put our camera in a couple different places that you wouldn't normally. They wouldn't normally let the general public, so we just contact them ahead of time. And it's actually pretty cool because I'm gonna see if I can pull it up here. Let's see if I can get it here.
While you're talking about the zoo, for all you young people, don't make the mistake I made my first year taking 6th graders to the zoo when my wife was pregnant, and they said the baboons had red butts because they were pregnant. And I said, yeah, that happens to humans too. My wife's butt is big red and raw as well. So be careful in your narrations.
Yeah, I wouldn't recommend that probably.
No, Brian.
Yeah, I don't think you're coming out of the basement for a while, Brian.
Yeah. Here was a fun one we did. So we did like the macaws exhibit, and so we were able to put some pictures of the macaws in here, and so you can kind of zoom in there. The neatest thing they actually let us do by getting permission from them was to actually go to the penguins, and we put our 360 camera, or we didn't. The zookeepers actually put the 360 camera in with the penguins, and that's a lovely image. See if it'll pull up here. But it's funny because then the penguins kind of start. There we go. This guy was a little inquisitive about the camera, and so he got up close and personal with the camera, and we were able to get some pictures with this. So, Jeff, you might want to talk to your people again, because the zoo actually reached out to us a couple weeks ago, and they're losing their revenue right now, and so they asked if they could have access to that, or where that link was, so they could actually post it to their website. So we have this little virtual tour of the zoo that's on their website somewhere now, just so they can kind of get that little promotion out there.
Yeah, I'll do that. I'll reach back out to the Harrison Museum and see about that.
Yeah.
Guys,
so,
I think this is a great idea to incorporate student choice in your curriculum, whatever age group, with a variety of places to go within your content. Obviously, social studies, there's a wide use of this, but if you're looking to get student choice and student voice, to have them, how many ever sites to go for science or math or books, authors' homes, president homes. It's a great choice, because then they get to pick not only where they go, what pictures they use if they're not going to go take actual pictures. So this is, I think this is really not just for this remote learning, but a way to really incorporate student voice and choice and into your curriculum.
And maybe something that some of you guys look, I would go to that poly.google.com website, and then you might find some things that you might be able to share with your kids over here the last couple of weeks. I know one teacher did, actually it was Courtney Nethercutt, used it in her cooking classes, where she had the kids go to, she found a virtual tour on there, and the kids toured some big bakeries in New York, and they were able to see kind of what those look like with a 360 view. She had some questions for them with that. So there's a lot of things. I mean, anytime you can get kids engaged with images, and especially 360, then it's going to be, you're going to get a little more bang for your buck, I think, too. So anybody have any questions for Barry? Aside from his fake story he told at the beginning, his embellished story that I have.
I can add a few more if we need to.
No, I don't think. Yeah.
Oh, please do, Barry. Please do.
Those all be false and edited out. So, all right. Well, if you guys have any questions, start small. Start with going to poly.google.com. Try to find some 360 tours that might be of interest to you. Then after that, if you want to get into the creating piece, we do have between really 5 to 8 360 cameras in the corporation that we can do this. And we've had some kids create some stuff. Jeff took one with him to the Harrison house to do. If you're going to go on a vacation this summer kind of cool. If any of those places ever open up and you want to take a camera, let me know, and we'll get you a camera, and you can take some 360 photos of it. So it's pretty cool when you can share that out.
One other piece that they use this a lot for is in architecture and in construction. They go through and they'll take pictures of their rooms, and they'll point out places that they want this wall gets torn out, this needs to be changed, etc. So there's, you know, the other side of technology, there's other pieces that they can use it for, not just, you know, the fun side of it. They can use it for actual work.
Yeah, lots of 360 photos on Zillow nowadays too. So, all right. Well, thank you all for joining. Greatly appreciate it. If you want to hang on a little bit and chat with Barry for a little bit, you know, we'll stay on for a little bit longer. But other than that, you guys will have a great Wednesday. Enjoy the sunshine that's finally starting to come out. Except for you, Brian. You stay in the basement.
Yeah, with the red butt. You're gonna have the red butt, brother.